You are listening to the Knightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Night Nation's only call-in show goes live now.
All right, hello, Night Nation. Wow, I'm starting this off with a bang. That's the way it goes. All right, Night Nation, I am Andrew Phegley. Wow. We're live from the Dever Team Studios, brought to you by ChadBarLaw.com. Raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Give Chad a call, 407-599-9036 for a free consultation, or visit ChadBarLaw.com. You can also call Travis Dever if you have New Smyrna Beach real estate needs. 386-690-1636. We're taking your calls, though. 844-580-9326. 844-580-9326. Or you can use the open mic feature on the WDBO app. Like I said, I am Andrew Phegley, AP Knightline on Twitter. Got Big Ben Stout here with me, and his Twitter is at BigSocial32. Also got Roger Phipps at Night Bengal, and he's from the Santa Rosa Beach studios. We've also got our good friend Brandon Helwig from UCFsports.com on the line. Brandon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. If you can hear me, I'm here.
Absolutely. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, we haven't talked since we really didn't talk during the season too much. It gets really crazy and all that stuff, but we like to talk to you obviously at the end of the season. I think we talked to you at the beginning of the season. Now we're talking to you basically at the end. We still have a bowl game. I want to start with that, a bowl game for UCF, the Boca Bowl. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it kind of became apparent. I mean, I think we all did it kind of just following this season. We all kind of wondered, what was going to happen with bowl season, first of all, because, most of these teams, they have schedules that extend well into the month of December. UCF's kind of the anomaly here, and one of the very few schools that actually finished their regular season at the end of November. I mean, pretty much everybody else has been playing games last weekend, this weekend, maybe 2 weeks from now. So, we're all kind of on edge. You see all the bowl games being canceled, primarily in other parts of the country, not necessarily the Florida bowl games. But, it's always kind of wondered in the back of your mind, is there going to be a bowl season? And I guess they're going to try to put one together. And I think for UCF, it's good that it's one of the early bowls in a year like this. The players have been through a lot. They're asking them to pretty much kind of be in their own kind of pseudo-COVID bubble this entire season and limit your contacts and don't really go out like you would, and you just try to do whatever you can so you don't get positive, you don't potentially spread it to your teammates. So it's been a tough year in holding guys to that standard. So, I think it's good that they can play an earlier bowl game. They're not asking guys to stay on campus through Christmas. I mean, some of these other bowl games are, December 26th, the Cure Bowl and the Gasparilla Bowl. Those games are on December 26th. So if they were potentially in that bowl game, you're asking guys to stay over for Christmas, and no one wants to do that. So it's kind of a best case scenario, really. And if it's going to be an ACC opponent, which is what they're saying right now, I mean, it's really best case scenario. You get to play an ACC team, a Power 5 team. You guys can go home, players can get home before Christmas. You can kind of keep them focused now instead of kind of keeping them in limbo, not knowing if they're in a bowl or what bowl they're going to go to. So all things considered, outside of maybe having a little bit better season and competing for the conference championship, this is about as good as you could have asked for.
Yeah, it looks like at 6-3 could be possibly third in the conference. It's not going to get any better than that, obviously, for this season. Kind of a weird season altogether. You've been watching UCF sports for probably longer than any of the rest of us have. What did you think about this season? It was just such a weird season, a short season, the whole COVID thing, especially going out there to the stadium. I made it out to one game this year, and it just seemed really weird.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of maybe, pick out a word to describe this season. I know a lot of fans are obviously disappointed that the team, didn't play a little bit better, in terms of winning some more games and potentially being, more prominently in the mix for the conference championship. It's just strange. It was a weird year. We all wondered if there was going to be a season. There was a lot of skepticism in July and August and all this stuff going on, and you saw these other leagues, pretty much calling quits on the season, and we were wondering if, when the shoe was gonna drop, for everybody. So, I'm grateful that they got to get in some games. The actual going to the games were very strange. I went to all the home games. I also went to the Georgia Tech game, but I kind of punted on the other road games. It just didn't make sense to travel, and your media is kind of limited and what you can do now, and people, I like to be on the field and kind of provide coverage that way, and that was off limits for these road games. So it was just a strange vibe, the limited crowds. It's just having guys be doubted the whole year. You had guys opt out. It was weird. I know it's a little disappointing that they couldn't have been right there competing for a conference championship at the very end, but still, a fairly successful season, all things considered. I think everybody will feel a lot better, and we'll see who all plays in the bowl game. But cross your fingers that the bowl game actually gets played, because as we see every week, there's last-minute cancellations. So crossing your fingers that there is a bowl game against an ACC opponent, I think that would be a really nice way to kind of end the season, all things considered, if they can find a way to win that game and have everyone kind of feeling good going into the off season.
Hey, Brandon, this is Ben. Good talking with you. I'm glad you're on tonight. You just mentioned it. It's just such a weird season. And with the opt-outs that you mentioned, some of the injuries that we've had, and some of the player dismissals that we had. Part of your job at UCF Sports is really covering these players before they even step on to UCF campus in recruiting, right? So you're kind of getting to know, or at least what these players are about before they even step on campus. So can you talk about a couple of the young guys that really stood out to you this year that you were maybe looking forward to before they stepped on campus, and because of the craziness of the 2020 season, stepped into a bigger role and probably shined?
Yeah, well, the guys that immediately come to mind, and we didn't really necessarily think they were going to have such prominent roles early on, are some of those freshman cornerbacks. You look at Corey Thornton. He pretty much started from day one. You got some other guys. Devontae Brown got in there quite a bit. Justin Hodges got his feet wet a little bit too. And, early on, before we really knew anything, we're talking about this is going to be the best UCF secondary in history. You're going to have Tay Gowan coming back. He had an excellent season last year, and you weren't, maybe you thought Brandon Moore was more advanced in his rehab, and that wasn't the case. But then you had some junior college. I know they were very high on a player who ended up opting out, Devontae Dawson. They were very high on him. They thought he was going to start if Brandon Moore couldn't come back. And of course, you have Richie Grant and Aaron Robinson, and Antoine Collier, all these guys with experience. And as it turns out, there's corner, that depth kind of dwindled fairly quickly, and UCF really had no choice but to play a lot of these freshmen. So, I don't know if that really made the difference in the games or not, but it's good to have those guys get experience and kind of have, those guys, a little bit more established going into next season. Those are the guys that come right to mind on offense. We didn't see a whole lot of true freshman play. I would have liked to see a little bit more, but it just seems like these games, there never was a great opportunity to kind of get these young guys reps. Quadri Jones, he's been here for a few years. He barely got to play, unfortunately. I would have liked to see him actually run the offense a little bit more than he did. But, I know they're high on, a position we're really going to be paying a lot of attention to once we get to spring is running back, because pretty much everyone's gone. Almost everyone, Otis Anderson and Greg McCrae. We think they're moving on. I'm pretty sure they are. I guess that's a question people are going to have, because with COVID, everyone got an additional year of eligibility if they want it. And that's the question. Do they want it? Do they want to come back? And maybe they want to come back. Maybe they want to transfer and see if someone else wants them. So those questions kind of remain to be answered. From what I understand, I'm pretty sure those guys are moving on. So, guys like Johnny Richardson, he played a little bit. I think we saw the most of them maybe in that Georgia Tech game. I mean, that might have been the most we saw all of them all season, but just some young guys like that. Demarius Good. I'm kind of anxious to see what those guys can do. But yeah, like you said, strange year, and just kind of we'll be glad in some respects if we get this season over with, and hopefully with the vaccine coming out and all that stuff, hopefully we can cross our fingers that we can kind of enter 2021 on a normal note, at least by next summer, and kind of have a normal season to look forward to where we can talk about road trips and tailgating, all that stuff we weren't able to do this year.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Hey, Brandon, it's Roger. I just wanted to touch base with you since you're talking about the future. So we talked about this year, and we talked about how much of the future we saw. Obviously, this recruiting season has been really, really odd, to say the least. But we do have an early signing period coming up. So how many spots do you expect to be filled in this early signing period? And how many spots do you think we hold for transfers on what's left over?
That's a great question, and it's one of those things that I think coaches might have had to kind of adjust on the fly when they kind of realized this transfer rule was going to go into effect this year. And if people who haven't heard about this, basically what the NCAA is going to allow, beginning with next season or players, for their eligibility, is you can transfer once in your college career, and you don't have to sit out. I mean, the way it worked before is if, say, someone was a graduate transfer, meaning they've already graduated from their previous school, but maybe they still have a year of eligibility left. Those players could be immediately eligible to play at another school. But for everybody else, they had to get a waiver from the NCAA, and those weren't always granted. It was, it used to be like a hardship waiver. Maybe if, you had a family member was ill or something, maybe they would grant that. They got kind of stingy with that the past couple of years. So, traditionally guys who transfer, they had to sit out an entire season before they were eligible to play. Now everybody will be eligible to play immediately. So it totally changes the transfer recruiting game. Because, you've got guys now, maybe they're freshmen or something. They're still going to have like another 4 years left to play. And, maybe someone's more established than a high school player. Do you save spots? How many spots do you save? It's kind of a risk, too, because maybe you got high school guys you can sign now and you kind of hold them in your back pocket, these scholarships, thinking you're maybe going to get some better players later on. And what if those better players don't materialize? So it'll be interesting to see how UCF handles that. Going into it, I think they're kind of looking to sign somewhere in that 23 range. It was going to be 25, and I have to double check on the numbers exactly, but I know they used some of the spots they could have used for this upcoming year when they kind of, got in some of these transfers prior to this season. Some guys like R.J. Harvey from Virginia, Deontay Marks from Florida, Jaden Francois from Nebraska, Devon Wilson from Georgia. I'm not exactly sure how the numbers end up working, but I know they kind of grabbed some they could have had it, however it works, but they kind of used some they could have used this upcoming year on those guys. I think exactly how many it'll end up being.
Hey, Brandon, we got to take a break. We'll come back after the break, and we'll talk a lot more. We got a lot more to talk to you about.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chadbar Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chadbar Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
And now, back to Nightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Knightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley. Got Ben Stout here with me, Roger Phipps, and we've also got Brandon Helwig from UCFsports.com on the phone. Sorry, Brandon, we kind of had to cut you off on that last one. It's got to go to the pesky break. But if you want to continue what you were saying, that would be perfect.
What was I saying? That's right. We're talking about recruiting class and just kind of how many spots and kind of managing, your roster with potential transfers down the line and everything. So, yeah, I think when it's said and done, they can take a class somewhere in the low to mid 20s. How many spots they kind of keep in their back pocket for transfers remains to be seen. I know if any fan who watched this season, you talk about what's the number one need, at least the number one need that you need help for 2021 right away. Where can guys step in and play? And that's defensive line. And that's where, if we're going to see some traction, and it's just so weird, we don't really know exactly, because with COVID, when recruiting, I mean, nothing is the same. There's no visits. There's no official visits. Coaches aren't out on the road. There's no home visits. Coach Heupel isn't going and doing home visits, and you see the guys tweet photos. So everything is like a phone call and Zoom. So you kind of don't really have a great idea of what's going on. I mean, before, where you maybe had – you had a top prospect, and everyone knows the signing day is coming up now. I guess the main one now is December. A few years ago, it used to be early February, and guys are maybe trying to squeeze in visits. Oh, I'm going to visit this place this weekend, this other school, and you kind of had a better idea of where guys stand, and then they take a visit. Maybe you can, interview them, and you kind of have an idea of what's going on. And now you don't really have that. It's just who's giving the most impressive Zoom presentation, I guess, and you don't really have it. And players can keep a wider net. They can entertain 10 or 12 different coaches if they want to, and before you could only take so many visits. So it's kind of hard to get a handle of what guys are doing and thinking late in the process. But I think defensive line is where I think there'll be some traction here in this final week. I know there's several prospects that are in on. I think one of the most promising guys is a guy, he's from Miami. He played this past season at IMG Academy. His name is Anthony Hundley. He's a defensive tackle. For a long time, he had been committed to LSU, and he decommitted from the Tigers last week, and UCF is definitely one of the prominent schools for him at this point. I'm not sure exactly what the odds are, but I think it's looking pretty good for UCF right now, and that's one I think we could see something happen. And there's a few other guys. I don't know if you want me to get totally specific with names maybe no one's ever heard of, but there's a guy from Louisville, Kentucky. His name Malachi Lawrence. His father actually lives in the Orlando area. He's been recruited by Tennessee and Boston College and a few others, and I know they're trying to see if maybe they can get a commitment out of him. So, we'll see what happens. It's just kind of weird. I don't think some of these players feel necessarily the pressure to commit because they're not taking visits. So, it may be something where, we're waiting on signing day just to see exactly who comes on board. But I'm actually curious to see what they end up doing with, how many spots you can end up saving, because I think we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg in terms of the transfer portal. I know it's gotten a lot of attention with McKenzie and stuff over the past week and other guys kind of jumping in. But with a lot of these teams still playing, this weekend and maybe next weekend, I think once the season is officially over for a lot of these teams, you're going to see a lot of players hit that portal. And so it'll be interesting to see what ultimately happens.
Yeah, you just mentioned the magic word there, McKenzie, and we're going to get into that in the next segment. We definitely want to talk about that because that's the biggest story of anything right now. I think one of the biggest stories in college football, actually, to see exactly where he goes. I mean, there's probably going to be some reality show about it. I don't know. No, probably not. But it's going to be a big deal, I think.
KZ lottery, basically.
Yeah, the KZ lottery. There's a couple people. In fact, the other website that deals with UCF sports says that it's 100% sure that he's going to Florida State. So, like I said, we'll get into that in a little while. We're going to take a break here shortly, and then after the break, we'll talk about that stuff. But this has been the craziest season. The rules are changing on the transfer rule, and players able to come back. The season basically didn't count as far as eligibility goes. There's just so much that made this a very weird.
Andrew, when we talk about getting it next spring, think about the name, image, and likeness that's going to go through, and players are going to be able to profit off their name. So that's going to be crazy too, and that's going to be coming up in a few months. That's another major monumental change.
Yeah, the whole thing is changing. The landscape of college football is changing, and unfortunately, it's going to turn into pro football, I think. But we're going to take a break here. We'll be right back, and we got tons of stuff still to talk about. Brandon's going to stick around. Right back on Knightline at Night.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Knightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this. We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys? My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Knightline Sports Network.
And now, back to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Knightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley. We are live from the Dever Team Studios, brought to you by Chad Bar Law, raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Give Chad a call, 407-599-9036 for a free consultation, or visit chadbarlaw.com. You can also call Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach real estate needs, 386-690-1636. You can call us at 844-580-9326, 844-580-9326, or you can use the open mic feature on the WDBO app. I'm Andrew Phegley. Got Ben Stout, Roger Phipps, and we also have Brandon Hellwig. I got it, guys. Thank you. I just had to think, for my brain kind of did a little pause there for a second. It happens all the time. You all should know this by now. Just give me a second. Anyway, Brandon Hellwig from UCFsports.com is on, and we've been talking recruiting. We were talking about how crazy this season is. One of our listeners sent me a text message and wanted me to ask you this question. He wanted to know what position group would most benefit from the transfer portal. Brandon.
I would have to say it has the potential to be defensive line, just because that's an area where I think you're going to need some immediate help. Obviously it was an area that was really thin on depth and got a little bit more thin, as we know, late in the season when a couple players were dismissed from the program. I think one of those players, probably wouldn't have been coming back next season because he was a senior, probably would have moved on anyway. But Randy Charlton, that's a big loss in terms of mapping out the future depth. So I think that would be an area where you cross your fingers, you would be able to hope you could find somebody maybe with some experience that could come in and play right away, whether it's defensive end or a defensive tackle. So I would think that would be the area to watch.
Yeah, and that whole thing with those players getting dismissed threw a big wrinkle into this season as well. I mean, that was just weird. Stuff like that really doesn't happen too much during this, in this program. UCF has pretty much put a tight lid on people, and there's not a lot of stuff like that happen within the system.
Yeah, well, I mean, things are different in 2020. I mean, everything's recorded. Everything's public record. I mean, if there were body cams recording video and audio of stuff that happened 20 years, 15 years ago, I mean, I think there maybe
That's true.
Sometimes didn't see the light of day. I think when George O'Leary was around, they had a pretty, it is a different era, but I mean, there were guys.
It would have been the coaches that would have
you,
gotten fired at that point.
Right. You knew there were some guys like this guy got a DUI or this guy got picked up by campus police, but it didn't get out into the open. It didn't get out the public record. Maybe there weren't websites where you could instantly check, right away. And it was up to the person from the local newspaper or local news station to go through the police blotter at the station. And they didn't always recognize names that may have been college football players. So there were things that slipped through the cracks, but it's just a different era with technology and everything else that if you do something like that, it's not going to slip under the radar.
All right, I want to get into this KZ thing. Mackenzie Milton transferring away. We never really probably thought that was going to happen, but it's another COVID-19 2020 weirdness to the season. Our guy, Mackenzie Milton, who obviously, if you're listening and you don't know, was horribly injured 2 years ago, dislocated his knee, is finally making a comeback. And he's transferring away because the quarterback situation is well in hand with Dylan Gabriel here, which happens to be his best friend. They're like brothers. It's like a soap opera, to be honest with you.
Went to the same high school.
Replaced him, and after Mackenzie came here, he was the next quarterback. It's a huge web of craziness. I never thought that Mackenzie would transfer away, to be honest with you. I thought somehow it would all get worked out and something would happen where they, I don't know. I thought that we would see Mackenzie play at least one more time or at least take a knee or something for UCF. Brandon, talk to us about this.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, I think I saw the writing on the wall that I don't know if Mackenzie, if first it was like whether he can come back and play again. I know he's going through rehab and he's talking about doing that, whatever it takes just to get through this grueling process. We all kind of wondered if he could ever really get to the point where he was actually going to play, real snaps in a football game. The thing I'm just really disappointed in is that he will never truly have the proper send-off that he deserves in terms of, like you said, whether it was, coming out for one snap or taking a knee or just something to kind of honor him, at least while he was at UCF wearing a UCF uniform, that we didn't get that moment. I mean, he never dressed out for a game. I mean, there were plenty of rumors that, he was getting close to doing so. And from what I understand, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but in that Memphis game on the road, he had full pads, everything set up in his locker, and there were a lot of people that thought he was going to dress up. I don't necessarily mean that he was going to play, but he was going to be fully dressed. And even in that game in Tampa the other week at South Florida, he had full pads in his locker, but just chose not to dress out. And so I'm just disappointed we don't have that moment. But as you kind of, if we're all being honest with ourselves, we kind of look at the situation, it's not really surprising what happened. I mean, it's really Dylan Gabriel's team now. I mean, you look at Mackenzie, you look at the team that would be on the field in 2021. I mean, really no one's left from that 2017, really much of the 2018 players. A lot of them will have moved on by then, and Dylan's established. I mean, and it's really hard. Like I said, quarterback's the position where two guys really can't play. I mean, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. That's that old saying. And, it's not fair to Dylan. It wouldn't be fair to ask him to kind of take a step back and let Mackenzie. It's not fair to Mackenzie to kind of, it's just, this is the best case scenario for both players, as much as it pains UCF fans to probably hear that. Just for the best, the most legendary player in UCF history, and I don't think that's a debate at all. It's just sad that, he's not going to have that final moment. And, I know, so it'll be interesting. If not weirder than COVID, it would be seeing Mackenzie Milton playing another uniform next season, and even weirder if it happens to be an in-state school.
Absolutely. Hey, Roger, we're going to go to you next. What do you got for Brandon?
Well, speaking of KZ, obviously in an in-state school, there's been some rumors around two of those in-state schools, one to the south of us and one to the north of us. So I'd really hate to see that. I'm going to go on a limb with this one. What do you think the chances are that KZ actually gets a statue at the stadium, and do you think he should?
I think at some point he should. I mean, you can debate about statues, whether it's appropriate, to put them up, how quickly you put them up in terms of, when a player last played, or, there was a debate about the O'Leary statue. But, I mean, if there were two guys, not just McKenzie, that were, to me, statue-worthy, the other one would be Shaquem Griffin. But honestly, if UCF wanted to get into that statue game and put out, someone else other than O'Leary, I definitely think McKenzie Milton is deserving of that. I mean, we just kind of look at what he meant to the program. And I mean, credit goes to Scott Frost for recruiting him out of Hawaii. But, and Heupel has been fairly successful when he's got here. Obviously hasn't, I know people are disappointed, haven't, sealed the deal in a conference championship the past 2 seasons. But just look at McKenzie. I mean, that was the common thread in these undefeated seasons. Frost in his last season at UCF and Heupel in his first season. I mean, McKenzie Milton is what made it go. And I think a lot of UCF fans kind of got, I don't know, maybe kind of thought the state of the program or the team was maybe a little bit better, than they really were. Look at McKenzie Milton. I mean, he made that offense. If the protections weren't there, broken play. I mean, he was a magician, and it hasn't been as easy to replicate since he's been gone. And you just kind of get sad for a moment when you kind of think about, well, what if McKenzie didn't get hurt? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that UCF beats LSU, and then you have those 2 back-to-back undefeated seasons at that point with a win over an SEC team in a New Year's Six bowl, and then just imagine how crazy 2019 would have been with him coming back. I mean, the buzz would have been just crazy. But it didn't happen that way. He got hurt, and but I'm just happy that he's getting to a point where he can come back, because kind of going to that that game at South Florida a couple weeks ago, you kind of the memories and the emotions come flooding back from 2 years ago, and wondering with the rumors started coming out that it was extremely serious, and he could potentially lose his leg. So for him to be back at this point to make a comeback, I think at the end of the day we just got to be happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I honestly think, and just in my opinion, he's the most legendary player to play for UCF, and potentially in any sport. I mean, just his impact on UCF football and UCF's brand in general is just it's quite legendary. And I think about a lot of my favorite moments, and if I had to pick one on the field with McKenzie Milton, I think it's that pass that he threw to, I think it was Dredrick Snelson in the back of the end zone right before the half at against Auburn in the Peach Bowl. I think that's probably my favorite on the field moment for McKenzie Milton, and we're going to probably talk about this for weeks as far as our favorite on the field moments. But does something stick out to you? Just one of those moments that, whether it be something that you knew he was going to be one of the great ones, or just a spectacular moment that sticks out to you besides that one in McKenzie Milton's playing career.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of like the buzz. The thing I kind of remember just was when he first got here, and the new era of UCF football, UCF fast. Scott Frost was going to be totally different than what we were accustomed to with George O'Leary. And just I remember talking. I think it was Wyatt Miller, kind of like a preseason camp interview, talking about McKenzie. I mean, and his face just lit up, and he was comparing him to Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, who had obviously been at Texas A&M a few years prior and kind of earned that nickname. And I mean, he was just lit up about and talking about the special things that he could do, and that's kind of when the buzz started. I mean, everyone was talking about McKenzie, and it just even we didn't really get to see practice, and everything has been pretty much closed off since O'Leary left. But just kind of the buzz was building through players, and we all kind of wonder what would happen. And then, I remember I guess it came out part of that Maryland game in 2016 that who was officially going to start. And, we can talk about this for days or weeks or hours. I know we have a limited time, but he almost left. I mean, that was kind of a rocky up and down freshman year for him, all the way from Hawaii and being homesick and everything going on. And
he got booed off the field during the Cure Bowl. I mean, for goodness sake,
we all have Mama Milton to thank for moving over here and keeping him here at UCF. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it could have ended much differently.
Speaking of that buzz you just talked about, before his freshman season, can you equate that at all to some of the buzz you were hearing about Dillon Gabriel prior to last season? It probably wasn't the same level, but did you hear some buzz about Dillon before the season started last year?
It was really just about how accurate he was, and just the deep balls, just one after the other. People, you kind of hear a little bit because, maybe some of these donors and other people, alums, and some of these former players, they get good at practice. So, they kind of see some stuff. And so you kind of hit them up and ask what they're seeing out there. And I mean, from the buzz from Dillon, it was kind of the same way. Just the fact that, he had a really great arm, and just that's really what Heupel loves to do, is throw that deep ball. And Dillon was just amazing with how he was able to do that. So it was kind of some similar buzz that we were hearing about Dillon as well. But, it'll be interesting. I think it's sad to say, I think someone made a comment on the message board the other day. Kind of the most exciting thing recruiting-wise going on is maybe not necessarily UCF, but just kind of tracking where McKenzie's going to go, which is, the best player in UCF history is moving on. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens with him. I don't know if he wants to make an earlier decision. Obviously, I think people who kind of follow UCF know Florida State obviously is very interested. I know Arkansas is another program. There's kind of some connections there when the former UCF coaches, John Cooper's there as tight end coach, but the biggest connection is Kendall Briles is the brother-in-law of Jeff Lebby, who was at UCF, and McKenzie has a great relationship with Jeff Lebby, so he kind of maybe knows what he'd be kind of getting into with Kendall Briles, and they want him really bad. And I know Miami's in the picture, but Miami's got some other things going on. They don't necessarily maybe need him like those other schools, and I'm not sure if they're ready to make a decision on if they want him or not. And there's just a few of the schools. It'll be interesting to see if it's one of those, or maybe a squad of left field that we're not necessarily expecting.
All righty. Well, we got another break coming up here. And when we come back from that break, we're going to talk a little bit of basketball, because basketball season just started, and I would be remiss in this show if we did not talk about it. So we'll be right back on Knightline at Night. Hey, Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
And now, back to Knightline at Night on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Call now at 844-580-9326.
All right, back on Knightline at Night. I'm Andrew Phegley. We're live from the Dever Team Studios and brought to you by Chad Bar Law. This is a short segment, so I'm going to throw it to Ben really quick here. I want you to talk to Brandon about basketball. We haven't had a lot of time to talk about this, but really quickly we can do it.
Yeah, Brandon, obviously, we just started the basketball season 1-1. We really the last 30 minutes of the game the other night were just horrible. But prior to that, we were playing great. But just in general, I mean, maybe even concentrating on some of the newcomers that we have to this team, there's a lot to talk about. But before we get to that, Darius Perry, Tony Johnson, they're our best hope at point guard this year. Both of them are out right now, injured. Can we expect to see either of them back anytime soon? Because we really are lacking some ball movement overall. I think that's when we really struggle, is when we can't just quite get into it and get those assists up as a team. So can you speak about those guys?
Yeah, I mean, that was really a bad situation when you look at the team come back. It was going to be young, but all of a sudden you have really the only 2 point guards you have, one Darius Perry being a senior grad transfer from Louisville. He's out with an undisclosed injury. I don't know specifically what it is, but it seems like maybe by late December he can come back. So maybe not soon, but the end is in sight. Unfortunately, with Tony Johnson, and people were maybe at the game and watching warm-ups prior to the second half, he was, shooting some shots, and he just kind of tweaked his knee and leg, and it kind of came down awkwardly on it. It was really a freak thing, and didn't know how serious it was or not. He had to kind of wheel himself off the court on a scooter at the end of the game. But we talked to Johnny Dawkins the other day, and he's out for a while. He didn't specifically say what it is, but he was given vibes that it was a season-ending thing, maybe like I don't want to speculate, but, with the knee and a ligament, maybe something in that area. It certainly seemed serious that he was going to have surgery. So that's pretty serious. If you have to have surgery, it would indicate it's something like that. So that's tough if you don't have your only 2 point guards, and then, a guy like Colin Smith. I know you didn't ask about that, but, you take him out of the lineup and you thought he was going to be part of the team. Those are some pretty big pieces to pull out and try to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have some great newcomers. Obviously, C.J. Walker was declared immediately eligible right before the season. I thought he started out the season pretty well, and I think he's really going to progress. He brings a ton of energy. What do you think? What you've seen from C.J. so far?
Yeah, and one thing we didn't really realize right away is that, he wasn't practicing a lot early on. He was, don't know what the injury was, but Coach Dawkins said he was kind of injured beginning of the preseason, didn't go through a lot of practices that the other guys did, so he's kind of learning on the court as well, learning the system and everything else. But obviously there's a lot of talent, and I think we all can appreciate what Dawkins is really doing now. He's building with high school players, and or a guy like C.J. Walker obviously has, many more years to play. He's got a really good commitment in Darius Johnson. He's a 4-star player, going to be part of the team next year. So he's building the team in the right way. Maybe there'll be some growing pains this year. We don't know. I love the talent. I love Isaiah Adams. We've seen him play, obviously, the last 2 games. I love what, like you said, from C.J. Walker. We'll see what happens. There's obviously some tough games coming up. I mean, I don't know if it's but Houston, that's the next one. I don't know if that's going to get played. I think they're number 10 of the nation right now. They're having some COVID issues. Potentially that game might get postponed, but even if that one doesn't get played, you got Florida State on the road. Everyone follows basketball. Florida State's been right up there. I mean, that would have been interesting to see what they could have done this past season. Obviously been, a dominant program of late. And then you get Cincinnati out after that, one of the storied programs in the American. So there's definitely some tough tests for these young guys. They're going to get challenged right off the bat.
All righty, Brandon. Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight and staying the whole hour. Really appreciate it. So people can find you at ucfsports.com. We're running short. This is it. Thank you very much to everybody for listening, and we will see you back next week at the exact same time on the same station. Thank you very much. Charge on.